Backseas Musical Podcast.
As you know, next week is Halloween, and nothing beats roaming around strange neighborhoods with a pillowcase full of delicious chocolate-covered dental problems and insulin resistance. And because Halloween falls on a Tuesday this year, most people are going to try to jam in as much spookiness as they can over the weekend. And while scaring people in your own neighborhood is great, imagine the sort of fun you'd have in Salem, Massachusetts, home of the famous witch trials in the early 1690s. Remember them? That's back when the puritanical secular leaders of colonial Massachusetts held this farcical perversion of criminal justice and convicted 30 people of witchcraft, 19 of which were executed. Today in Salem, you'd be hard-pressed to find anyone performing actual witchcraft, but that's mostly because the high property values and high tax rate have forced most of them to seek homes and rental units in less desirable neighborhoods. And yet, when it comes to Halloween, there is no place on earth that gives you a bigger case of the creeps than the town of Salem, Massachusetts. In fact, Salem is not only holding their usual lineup of Halloween-related events and traditions, it's also a place to see a great show starring the band Wicked at the Salem Waterfront Hotel on Saturday, the 28th. Now, if you're not aware of Wicked, imagine you're being thrust back in time to the days when hair bands were all the rage. Wicked is a band from Rochester, New York, whose debut album, The Last American Rock Band, came out last year, and it's awesome. This year, they're about to release their second album called Sunburn, and unlike most bands, they're already working on record number 3 before releasing record number 2. That takes dedication. And these guys will be in Salem on Saturday night to scare you out of your spandex pants in time for Halloween's Hollywood Horror Night, and I can assure you that it is going to be a damn fine time. To talk about that, the band, the record, and some other stuff too, my guest today is Danny Martin, bass player for the band Wicked, on Backseas Musical Podcast. Good to see you.
Good seeing you.
Yeah. Hey, I've been listening to the first album since you made the arrangements to talk to you, the Last American Rock Band, and you got your second album coming out. I think it's next week, Sunburn.
Yeah, we have a single from it, kind of kicking off the campaign next week,
Right.
and that's Lost in the Dark. Yeah,
Yeah. I have to ask, how old are you guys?
we're in our late 20s. Me being the oldest and 30, so I'm the band dad. So I kind of keep the other guys all in line.
So you're driving the van, you're making sure everybody gets home on time.
Listen, don't go crazy. That's the drummer's job, is to drive the van.
Well, because it's funny to me because when I started radio, glam metal, the hair bands. I mean, that's what we were playing, and I was playing it first run. So to see a band like Wicked kind of, obviously influenced by a lot of that music, to me is really it's kind of fun because most of those guys are deep in their 60s and old enough to be your fathers.
I know, right? It's like, how do we get struck by that bug of lightning? It's like, man, it was just like one of these days, like when I was in elementary school, hearing like an AC/DC song, like while screwing around at school, supposed to be doing work, and I was like, boom, I've got it, man. TNT, let's go.
But what's interesting about it though is even though you guys have got that aesthetic, obviously, I wouldn't really categorize your music in that way. I mean, when I heard like New York Tough, for example.
I appreciate somebody, taking the time and kind of getting that delivery, because, that's the intention, is we're trying to evolve, where we came from with our influences and like what our music is, so it stands on its own two legs.
Yeah, and I hear that, like, when I hear like New York Tough, for example, I'm not if I'm just listening to it, in headphones or on the in the car or whatever, I'm not necessarily attaching one to the other. I'm just hearing a really great pop song though. But so tell me about that, the image and how it reflects in the music.
I mean, if you dug into our past, we've been coming up as, like really kids over the last 10 years, just getting our getting our chops, cutting our teeth on, what it means to play live and be musicians. But the four of us live together like an old school band. So we're, like I said, we're definitely like built off of that foundation of like what bands used to be. But we're kids of the 90s, right? So we always like to say, like to sum it up really quick for people in passing, what do you guys play? Well, it's original music, number one. We rarely do covers because that's for somebody else to do.
Right.
We're trying to do something. We've got things to talk about here. But it's those 70s influences around that decade mixed with 90s, which we grew up on. And it's really like that hard rock power pop combination. And we think it's kind of cool because, we came from being very niche-y and wearing, like trying to be like New York Dolls, right? Like that was when we were kids, it was like, the more androgynous, the more crazy, let's learn how to like sew leather and make these, crazy Kiss-like outfits and, 7-inch platform boots, we wanted to be like New York Dolls, but then as you grow and you play, you're like, this is awesome. And we don't want to turn our backs on this, but like, we want to accept more people into our circle, into our sphere so that they can enjoy kind of like what we have to say and what our music's all about. And that really kind of drives to where we're at today is we're all about community. The best thing for us is when we're at a show is seeing just these random people from all different backgrounds come together in this community for just that moment that you can never get that same moment back. And you'll have business people next to punk rockers or goths or, you name it, metalheads, and they're all just intermingling, just smiling, escaping from, their day-to-day, BS, man.
Well, I will say that, any teenager that wants to be like the New York Dolls, I think if they really pay attention to what was going on with the New York Dolls, it'd be like the last thing your band would want to be.
Yeah, exactly.
And I love the New York Dolls, don't get me wrong, but I think after following along, like, Johnny Thunder's lifestyle, even Arthur Kane, you say, well, maybe that's not such a great idea.
Yeah, exactly.
But when I hear the music, like I say, I hear great pop stuff, but I also hear it. I hear like a little bit more sophistication than what you would have heard, say, in the late '80s or early '90s.
Yeah,
I'm actually hearing things like, like Cheap Trick, for example. I mean, I hear that pretty loud and clear, where like song structures actually mean something. Whereas if you go back to a lot of the bands that I played, early on in my radio career, it's like, well, that wasn't really the important part of glam. It was more about the hair and meeting girls in the back of a bus.
Yeah. No, we're big. When we really dive down into our influences on the hard rock side and a little bit of that power pop is like, Cheap Trick. Like you said, from the songwriting standpoint, in terms of the instruments and some of like the melodies and stuff. We're also big Thin Lizzy fans. Like it's just something that just runs so deep in us, everything from like that guitar work that they're, famously known for. But also like just Phil's lyric writing to me is like, when we all write together on the floor, like, because we live together, right? So anytime we want, we just say, hey, let's go and write the song and demo it out. But, influences like that, they just had such great lyrics and like, and emotion built into that stuff. And I'm like, hey, why can't we do it all? Right. Like, let's just keep trying to evolve this to ultimately, all the little pieces of magic we could put into our basket. So
it's funny because, so many people, I think in the United States at least, only know Thin Lizzy as The Boys Are Back in Town and Jailbreak. But they've never listened to any of the other stuff, like the live album that those guys did. I mean, it's just this unbelievable band that everybody has passed on until you hear it and you say, oh, yeah, I've made major mistakes in my life not playing this. Major mistakes. So the new album, Sunburn, you say it's coming out next week. It was produced by, correct me if I'm wrong, Ignacio Molina, who has won Grammy after Grammy. He's won a bunch of Latin Grammys. Not necessarily a guy who's done a lot of power pop bands, but he has certainly touched around that. Tell me about him and how you got hooked up with him.
Oh, it's a great story. So it brings us full circle back to Salem, Mass, where we're doing the show coming up this weekend on the 28th. But when we first came to Salem to visit, it was a Halloween weekend, like classically. and probably like one of the last Halloween weekends until recently that we've been there, and it's become our second home. We met this great couple that has a store on Essex Street, Hermetic Arts Center. Just very intelligent people and salt of the earth kind of personalities, really became family. Well, the story goes is Maria's son is Nacho, and he ended up, in this time, 7 years of us kind of going to Salem and becoming friends and family. He comes up from Panama, where he's down there doing all this work with, Ruben Blades and, all this Latin music, big band stuff, like
Yeah.
he's, again, cutting his teeth on, things that are way more complicated than a 4-piece rock band. But he's a Pantera fan, right? You know what I mean? The guy likes metal and hard rock. And it was just one of those weird things, that almost feels like it was meant to happen. Moved up to Brooklyn and Salem, kind of in between. And, we met, and it was like, hey, this is what we're doing. Like, we heard you're interested in this. And it was like almost instant. I'm moving up to Western New York to be next to you guys. Literally bought a house. And we've been working for the past, 4 years. We built a studio with him in the house so we could, cut really like sufficient demos, and we pre-production and do everything together, all the way back to like taking Fridays, getting home from our day jobs and doing a beerness, as we call it, like just the boys hanging out, kicking back and letting loose. So we're super fortunate to, I think it's about like putting out that good karma. These are those moments where you kind of reap those rewards every now and then. And boy, are we lucky. He's just a savant in what he does.
So now that he's practically a roommate, I mean, is he is he working with you guys on the third record? Because my understanding is that is already a process that's underway.
Yeah, you're absolutely correct. I'll even drop a little hint. We think it's going to be called, the working title is called Go Rebel for the third album. And we've got that one pretty much, I'd say about 75% finished. And that's kind of how like this band works, is it's always, gas pedal to the floor. We have a little bit of that, high functioning OCD where like it's a never stop. We're just so passionate about what we do. So, we write and people are like, Sunburn's not even out yet. And it's like, yeah, well, we're already making the third and fourth record, but we got to get the music down. You know what I mean? And
Yeah. Well, I mean, a lot of record companies would probably, tap the brake on you guys and say, "Whoa, slow down. Yeah, there's only so much of our money that can go around." But
that's right.
But that's really it. So, I mean, as far as that goes, I mean, are you looking for a release in 24 or 25, or is that too early to tell?
No, I mean, I think, it's like I said, we want to apply the pressure. I alluded to it earlier. We've been kind of like, paying our dues, if you will, playing and learning how to be a real band, which I think is important. Anybody could go up and play tracks and press a space bar.
Yeah.
But, we take pride in our records and our live shows sounding very coherent together. And so with that said, we want to apply the pressure. We want to keep music coming out, because if, in our case, doing it DIY as we are right now, that's the most important thing is to just to create, people's attention span is so short nowadays. You want to create that brand and that community that for people to sink their teeth into it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And we're enjoying it. We've got the resources that we need right now to make this thing move forward DIY. Somebody comes and has a good deal. Great. We're open ears, but it's the days of, those record deals and, just different,
Yeah.
So
No, it's
playing the game.
It's totally different. But the good news about it is you're doing it the right way, because you can't really move forward unless you're building your own momentum and making your own opportunities. And then to be allied with a Grammy award-winning producer, I mean, you stumbled into something pretty fantastic with that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
So let me ask you about the show on Saturday at the Salem Waterfront Hotel. I mean, obviously it's Halloween weekend. Salem is a zoo on Halloween, absolutely mobbed. Tell us what's going on in that show.
This show's pretty cool. We did one last year for Halloween at a little dive bar called Kodo. That's a sushi place by day and rock metal club by night. And I think people have known about us walking around town on the off season for a while now, and it's that excitement's built. And, the hotel has got this great event this year that's really like just such a step up in terms of there's a Halloween, costume contest. You got the radio stations involved. You got hors d'oeuvres and all kinds of food pickums throughout the night if you get a ticket and you kind of come in, on top of the fact that DJ spinning some fun music before and after. And we're doing a really cool set. We, like I mentioned before, we don't do much covers, but it's Halloween. It's our annual kind of like time of year that we really like to have a little bit of fun and bring the crowd into. So we're bringing our friend up, David Newman from the Hermetic Arts Shop, classically trained in guitar and a big Black Sabbath fan. So we're doing about 45 minutes of like just the coolest Black Sabbath set that you can imagine. And then we're going to rip into a little over an hour of wicked original music to close out our night. And, the fans could expect to hear some leaks from the Sunburn album coming up. And even some other new tracks that we've been working on, whether it be from Go Rebel or, future stuff.
Yeah.
Along with the Last American Rock Band tracks. And people are always like, oh, so you play music that hasn't been released yet? I think it's important. I think it's important when I go to see bands that I love and they do something special like that, and you're not hearing the same old set list every show, you're so much more engaged and intrigued, and you leave there excited, and you're kind of like trying to figure out what was it in that lyric that he said, because you can't find it anywhere. And so you're like, for the next 6 months looking around, like trying to figure out what is that song that they sang, and I think that adds to like the excitement and fun of being a fan of music and going to a live show. You know what I mean?
Right.
You just can't find that on Spotify. So
true. And the cool part about that dynamic is, when you hear a song that you love played live and it hasn't been released yet, you sit there and wait. Okay, well, when am I mapping out my time for this? How closely am I going to follow this band? And that's a great way of doing it. Planting that seed and having it grow 6 months from now. Absolutely.
Right.
So I'm going to ask you because, I've been to Salem and, a number of times over the course of my life. I mean, I know that it's kind of like a second home for you guys. Rochester, New York, upstate is kind of where you're from. But
yeah,
how did you find Salem? How did that become like such an important place for you guys?
I think it all started, just like anybody else, like, oh, cool, like this is which city, like it's kind of like some of those fringe like things that we're interested in. Let's go. And when we met Dave and Maria, the Hermetic Arts Shop, they let us into their world a little bit. And it's like, oh, it's not just, stuffed, witches and knickknacks and tchotchkes. There's more to this culture here. And we got to know that culture and that group of people and what they do in Salem, the people who actually are really serious about magic and different kinds of hermetic practices. And perfectly and ironically, it really blended well with that whole rock and roll culture. A lot of the folks are just so excited and into that kind of music. So it's great. Like we come to town and we give them a little reprieve of their day to day, which we're interested in, and they get to hear about some music and rock and roll stories. And we'll crash and grab some good seafood and a bunch of beers and just have a good time with good friends. So
whenever I drive through Salem, I say, witches in this nice neighborhood? I don't think so. You want to find scary stuff in Massachusetts, go to Lawrence or Brockton. I mean, those are towns that are freaking frightening, but not in Salem. Salem's a beautiful little burg.
So true.
It is true. So once the record is out, are you guys going to, because I was on your website looking for what is coming up next, and there's nothing specifically laid out. Is the plan to go back on the road or to just keep working on the new record?
We're finalizing some plans with our good friends in Raven, and I think in March, right around the March time frame, we haven't announced it officially yet, but we're planning on going out on a U.S. tour with them, and that'll be great. A little bit of Canada as well, so we'll hit everything from the East Coast, Midwest, and West Coast, and it'll be really nice because we've done pockets of shows and festivals, Rocklahoma, this and that over the years, but this will be a real road dog tour. We're going to jump in an RV alongside a Raven, and we're going to go every day a different city for about a month and a half.
Yeah.
And so it's going to be it's going to be really cool, refreshing, and it's going to, it's going to beat the hell out of us, but that's rock and roll, baby.
So with the four of you guys living in the same house, you're all roommates, you're all in a band, you're all going to pile into a van and travel God knows where you're going to go. Is it just good to get out of the house? I mean, do you ever say, I got to spend a little bit of time, me time away from you guys?
Well, it's funny. We always joke about the me time because that doesn't really exist. Every now and then, once in a blue moon. But we love being around each other. Like we are truly like, my brother and I family, obviously, but just family, best friends. And but you're right. You have to get out of the house. You can't write music that means anything to anybody if you don't go and live life a little bit. So we're famous for our trips. Non-band related. We just get out and, we do just that, whether we're hitting beaches in California or something. So, I think it's going to be nice on tour to get out, still do our passion and get to play and meet new people.
Yeah.
But yeah, man, it's all about getting out there and living, you know what I mean? You got to have that experience. So
I think what's really good about what you guys do is that, you take the music seriously. But you do have, like I said, there is this aesthetic, this glam rock, hair metal aesthetic, which when you look at it and when you see video of you guys live or even in the videos you've done, all you can think is these guys are clearly having the freaking time in their lives doing this, and I think a lot of bands forget that you're also supposed to have fun too, and as opposed to everything is serious and you got to be shredding and all this other shit, and it just shows that you guys maybe have tapped into something that a lot of bands haven't learned a lesson from.
Listen, nothing's nothing's promised at the end of the day. So whether we become as big as Kiss or don't have a dime in our pocket, like you alluded to there, it's all about the fact that we are really enjoying what we're doing.
Yeah,
and wouldn't trade it for the world.
So the gig is Saturday night at the Salem Waterfront Hotel in Salem, and the new record Sunburn is coming out next week, and the first single is Lost in the Dark. I think I got it all correct.
You do, yeah. Super excited.
Awesome. Well, Danny, great to talk to you. I wish you guys all the best of luck in the world, and have a great weekend in Salem.
Pleasure.
You bet, Danny. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
See ya.
Again, the band Wicked is going to be at the Salem Waterfront Hotel on Saturday. 225 Derby Street in Salem. That's the actual address. And their new record, Sunburn, available on November 3rd. Thanks for listening. I hope you liked it. If you did, feel free to like it, share it, tell all your friends about it. Also, be sure to check out updates on Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok. And you can email me at bax@rock102.com. I'd love to know what you think. And thanks again for listening to Baxi's Musical Podcast.